We live in a world that worships wealth. The bigger the house, the flashier the car, the longer the bank balance, the greater the success. Or so it seems. But let me tell you something. There are treasures no money can buy.
Joy,
Gratitude.
contentment,
A heart at peace. These are the true riches, yet many who have everything still live as if they have nothing. This is the story of Charles, a man with millions, yet empty inside. And the lesson he learned not from a book, not from a mentor, not from another millionaire, but from a poor man on the street. Charles had it all. Or at least that's what people thought. A sprawling mansion, chandeliers that glittered like stars, cars polished so bright you could see your reflection in them. But inside that mansion lived silence. No laughter at the dinner table, no warmth in the hallways. Charles ate alone. He drank expensive wine, but it only tasted bitter. He slept on the finest mattress, but his nights were restless. He told himself, I should be happy. I've achieved what people dream of. Yet every morning he woke with a heaviness money couldn't cure. In his office high above the city, Charles signed contracts worth millions. His phone never stopped buzzing. His schedule was packed. His name appeared in magazines, his photo on the cover with headlines like The King of Finance or The Billion-Dollar Mind. But deep down, Charles felt something was missing. After each deal, there was no joy, only the question, what's next? What more can I get? He looked at his employees rushing around, tired and anxious, and wondered if they too were chasing an endless finish line. At night, Charles lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his chest heavy. His doctor told him, you need rest, less stress. But how could he rest when restlessness lived inside him? One chilly evening, Charles's driver dropped him off downtown. He had attended another business dinner, but instead of going straight home, he decided to walk. As he passed a narrow street, he noticed a man sitting on the curb. His clothes were torn, his shoes old, yet his eyes were alive. The man was eating a simple piece of bread, smiling to himself as if he had found treasure. Charles slowed down. Curiosity tugged at him. Why is this man smiling? He has nothing. Unable to resist, Charles approached him. Why do you smile?
Charles asked.
You sit here with nothing, yet you look happier than me with everything. The poor man chuckled softly and replied, Who told you I have nothing? I have the bread in my hand, the air in my lungs, the strength to live another day. Is that not something? Those words struck Charles like lightning. Charles walked closer, his polished shoes clicking against the cracked pavement. He couldn't understand why a man with so little could smile so widely. Why are you smiling? Charles asked, his voice sharp with curiosity. The poor man looked up, his eyes calm and steady. I smile because I have enough, he replied. This bread will fill my stomach. This water will quench my thirst. Tonight I have a place to rest. Tomorrow I'll still be alive to try again. Isn't that enough reason to smile? Charles frowned. Enough? The words sounded foreign to him. He had everything, yet nothing ever felt like enough. The poor man tore a piece of bread and chewed slowly, savoring each bite. Charles watched, baffled. Don't you wish for more? Charles pressed. Better clothes, a bigger house, a proper meal? The poor man chuckled softly. Of course, those things are nice. But if I spend my life chasing what I don't have, I'll forget to be grateful for what I do have. His words cut deep. Charles thought of his own life, how he had chased deal after deal, purchase after purchase, only to find himself empty at the end of each day. You see, the poor man continued, gratitude makes me rich. Your money, it only makes you busy. For the first time in years, Charles felt speechless. The night was quiet, broken only by the hum of a faraway car and the flicker of the streetlight above them. Charles, a man worth millions, sat down on the edge of the curb beside a man worth almost nothing. And yet, in that moment, it was the poor man who seemed like the teacher and Charles who felt like the student. True wealth, the poor man said gently, is not in the size of your bank account. It is in the peace of your heart. A grateful man is rich, even with little. An ungrateful man is poor, even with everything. Charles lowered his head. His expensive watch glimmered in the dim light, but for the first time, it looked meaningless. That night, under the glow of a broken streetlight, the millionaire's real education began. The next evening, Charles did something unusual. Instead of heading to a gala dinner, he asked his driver to take him back to that narrow street. The poor man was there again, humming softly while sipping water from a plastic cup. Charles approached, this time without arrogance. "Why do you sit here smiling?" Charles asked again, though his voice carried more humility than before. The poor man grinned, "Because life gives me gifts every day. A smile from a stranger, the warmth of the sun, the strength in my legs to walk. Gratitude makes me wealthy in ways money cannot." Charles sat beside him on the curb. For the first time in decades, he felt like a student. Charles shook his head slowly. "All my life, I believed success was measured by how much I owned. But you without anything look happier than me. How is that possible?" The poor man looked him in the eye. "You have mistaken ownership for living. You count what you have in your hands, but not what you carry in your heart. Gratitude is the real wealth. Without it, even a king lives in poverty." Charles felt as if a veil had been torn. He remembered the long nights of restlessness, the empty laughter at parties, the endless chase for more. Suddenly, it all seemed meaningless. The poor man added softly, "You don't need more money, Charles. You need more meaning." The poor man tore his bread in half and handed a piece to Charles. "Eat," he said, smiling. Charles hesitated. No billionaire in the city would believe this. Him, sitting on a curb, eating bread from a poor man's hand. Yet he took it. The bread was simple, dry, almost tasteless. But as Charles chewed, something remarkable happened. It didn't taste like lack, it tasted like enough. The poor man whispered, "Gratitude transforms the little into enough, and enough into abundance." That is the lesson. And for the first time in years, Charles closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and felt full. Not in his stomach, but in his soul. The next morning, Charles woke differently. Instead of rushing into his day, he paused at the window. The sunrise painted the sky in hues of orange and gold. For years, he had looked past it, but today he noticed. At the office, when his assistant placed a cup of coffee on his desk, he whispered, "Thank you." When his driver opened the car door, he smiled with genuine warmth. These were small acts, barely noticeable to others. But to Charles, they felt like revolutions. Each "thank you" was a brick in the foundation of a new life. Gratitude had begun to reshape him quietly, but powerfully. Charles kept returning to the poor man, not with pity, but with humility. Sometimes they shared stories. Sometimes they simply sat in silence. One evening, Charles noticed the poor man's coat was torn. The wind was sharp. The next day, Charles brought him a new one. The poor man chuckled softly. "You're learning. True wealth is not in what you keep, but in what you give." Charles realized something. He had given away millions before, but never with heart. His past charity had been about recognition, about headlines. But this quiet, unannounced gift felt different. For the first time, giving filled him with peace instead of pride. Months passed, and Charles was no longer the same man. At a company meeting, he stood before his board and spoke words they never expected. "From this day forward, our wealth will not only measure what we earn, but how many lives we touch." His employees stared in silence, shocked. But slowly, something began to change in the company: more fairness, more care, more humanity. Charles had learned what no business school, no billion-dollar deal could ever teach, that gratitude and kindness were the true currencies of life. One evening, Charles returned to the same street corner. But the poor man was gone. Some said he had moved away. Others said he had simply vanished. Charles stood still, his heart heavy but grateful. Looking up at the night sky, he whispered, "Wherever you are, thank you. You showed me the wealth I had been blind to all along." From that day, Charles lived not as a man with millions in the bank, but as a man with abundance in his heart. And here lies the truth for you, listening now. Gratitude can turn emptiness into fullness, pressure into peace, and wealth into wisdom. So today, start small. Whisper, "Thank you for the breath in your lungs, for the roof over your head, for the chance to see another sunrise." Because the miracle is not in what you gain, it's in how deeply you notice what you already have. That is the millionaire's true treasure.